The Christmas Miracle at the Bus Stop. The snow fell softly on Christmas Eve, covering the city in a blanket of white. Each flake drifted down slowly, dancing in the golden glow of the street lights. Sarah Mitchell sat on the cold bench at the bus stop, watching her breath form small clouds in the frozen air. Her worn cardigan wrapped tightly around her shoulders, offering little protection against the bitter December wind. She looked down at the crumpled $10 bill in her hand. It was all she had left. The last of her money until her paycheck arrived after the holidays. Sarah had counted it 3 times that morning, hoping somehow the amount would change. But $10 remained $10, no matter how many times she smoothed out the wrinkles and stared at it. The city moved around her in its usual Christmas Eve rhythm. People hurried past with bags full of presents, their faces bright with anticipation. Families laughed together as they rushed to catch trains and buses, eager to reach their warm homes. Car headlights cut through the falling snow, each vehicle carrying someone to somewhere special. Sarah had been working double shifts at the diner for months, trying to save enough money to visit her mother upstate. Her mother had been sick, and Sarah desperately wanted to be with her for Christmas. But unexpected bills had emptied her savings account. The broken water heater in her apartment. The emergency visit to the dentist. The prescription medication she needed. One by one, these expenses had taken everything she had worked so hard to save. Now, sitting at this bus stop on Christmas Eve, Sarah felt the weight of loneliness pressing down on her shoulders. She had called her mother that afternoon, making her voice sound cheerful and bright, pretending everything was fine. She didn't want her mother to worry. She never wanted her mother to worry. The bus was late. Sarah checked her watch again, then looked down the empty street. She needed to get home before the buses stopped running for the night. Her small apartment waited for her, cold and quiet, with no decorations and no tree. There would be no Christmas dinner, no presents, no family gathered around a fireplace. Used silence and the sound of snow against the window. A sound caught her attention. Soft crying, barely audible above the whisper of falling snow. Sarah turned her head and saw him then. A little boy, no more than 7 years old, standing near the corner of the bus shelter. His coat was too thin for this weather, and his small hands were red from the cold. Tears streamed down his cheeks, freezing on his face. Sarah stood up immediately, her own troubles forgotten. She walked over to the child slowly, not wanting to frighten him. "Hey there," she said gently. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The boy looked up at her with wide, frightened eyes. "I lost my mom," he said between sobs. "We were shopping, and I let go of her hand, and now I can't find her. I don't know where she is." Sarah knelt down beside him, ignoring the cold, wet snow soaking through her pants. "It's going to be all right," she said softly. "What's your name?" "Tommy," the boy whispered. "Tommy, my name is Sarah. We're going to find your mom, okay? She's probably looking for you right now, very worried." Sarah pulled off her cardigan and wrapped it around the shivering child. It was so cold, so scared, so small against the vast winter night. She looked around, trying to decide what to do. Her phone had died hours ago, the battery finally giving up like everything else in her life seemed to lately. But she knew there was a police station 3 blocks away. She could take Tommy there, and they would help reunite him with his mother. Just then, the bus appeared at the end of the street, its headlights cutting through the snow. Sarah's ride home. Her escape from this cold, lonely night. She looked down at the $10 bill still clutched in her hand, then at Tommy's tear-stained face. The decision took less than a second. "Come on, Tommy," she said, taking his small hand in hers. "We're going to get you somewhere warm and find your mom." She walked to the bus as it pulled up, its doors opening with a mechanical hiss. The driver looked tired, ready for his shift to end. Sarah climbed aboard, Tommy close behind her, and held out her last $10. "This is for him," she said, nodding toward Tommy. "Can you please take him to the police station on 5th Street? His name is Tommy, and he's lost his mother. They help him there." The bus driver frowned. "What about you? Sarah smiled, though her heart ached. I'll walk. You don't live far. It was a lie. She lived 45 minutes away on foot, through snow and ice and cold that would seep into her bones. But Tommy needed this bus more than she did. Tommy needed to find his mother. Ma'am, I can't let you walk in this weather, the driver started to protest. But before Sarah could respond, a voice called out from behind her. Wait, please wait. Sarah turned around. A sleek black limousine had pulled up beside the bus stop, so quiet in the snow that she hadn't heard it arrive. The back door opened, and a man in an expensive overcoat stepped out. He was tall, well-dressed, with kind eyes that seemed to take in the entire scene at once. Excuse me, the man said, walking toward them. I couldn't help but overhear. Is this young man lost? Before Sarah could answer, Tommy let out a cry of joy. Uncle Richard. The man's face transformed with relief. He knelt down as Tommy ran into his arms. Tommy. Thank God you're safe. Your mother is frantic. We've been searching everywhere for you. Sarah stepped back, her role in the story suddenly over. She began to turn away, ready to start her long walk home in the snow. Please, wait, Richard said, standing up with Tommy in his arms. He looked at Sarah with an expression she couldn't quite read. You were helping my nephew? Sarah nodded. I was just taking him to the police station. It was so cold and scared. Richard looked at the $10 bill still extended toward the bus driver, then back at Sarah. Understanding dawned in his eyes. That's all you have, isn't it? And you were going to give it away to help a stranger's child? Sarah felt her cheeks flush. He needed it more than I did. Richard set Tommy down gently and reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out his wallet, but Sarah quickly shook her head. No, please. You don't want money. I'm just glad Tommy found you. Please, Richard said quietly. Let me do something. It's Christmas Eve. Where were you trying to go tonight? Just home, Sarah said softly. Richard studied her face for a long moment. Then he turned to Tommy. What do you think, Woody? Should we give this kind lady a ride home? Tommy nodded enthusiastically. She gave me her sweater, Uncle Richard. And she was going to help me find Mommy. Richard smiled and looked back at Sarah. You insist. It's the least I can do. And actually, I think my sister would very much like to thank you personally. She's just a few blocks away, waiting at the shopping center where Tommy got separated from her. Sarah hesitated, but the warmth of the limousine looked so inviting, and the thought of walking home through the snow suddenly seemed impossibly far. Okay, she said finally. Thank you. The bus driver smiled and closed the doors, pulling away into the snowy night. Sarah followed Richard and Tommy to the limousine, still hardly believing what was happening. Inside, the car was warm and comfortable. Tommy sat between Sarah and Richard, chattering excitedly about his adventure. Within minutes, they arrived at the shopping center, where a woman stood outside with two security guards, her face pale with worry. Mommy. Tommy called out as Richard opened the door. The reunion was beautiful. Tommy's mother, Jennifer, held her son tight, tears streaming down her face. When Richard explained what Sarah had done, Jennifer turned to her with eyes full of gratitude. You were going to give your last money to help my son, Jennifer said, her voice breaking. How can I ever thank you? He's safe, Sarah said simply. That's all that matters. But Jennifer and Richard had other ideas. Over Sarah's protests, they learned about her mother upstate, about the savings that had disappeared, about the Christmas she thought she'd spend alone. 2 hours later, Sarah found herself in the back of the limousine again, this time heading north. Jennifer had insisted she join their family Christmas, held each year at their mother's estate upstate, coincidentally in the same town where Sarah's mother lived. Richard had already arranged for a car service to bring Sarah's mother to join them. As the limousine glided through the snowy night, Sarah watched the world pass by outside her window. She thought about the $10 bill, still in her pocket, unspent. She thought about Tommy's frightened face, now transformed by joy and safety. She thought about how close she had come to simply boarding that bus and going home alone. Sometimes, Sarah realized, the greatest gifts come not from what we receive, but from what we give away. When they arrived at the estate, warm lights glowed in every window. Inside, a fire crackled in the fireplace, and a magnificent Christmas tree reached toward the ceiling. And there, waiting by the door, stood Sarah's mother, brought by Richard's driver, her face glowing with surprise and happiness. Sarah ran to her mother's arms, and for the first time in months, she felt completely, utterly home. Outside, the snow continued to fall, soft and gentle, covering the world in silent peace. Christmas Eve had brought a miracle after all, wrapped not in paper and bows, but in kindness, compassion, and the simple act of putting someone else's needs before your own. And somewhere in the city, a bus continued its route through the snowy streets, carrying other passengers to their destinations, while Sarah Mitchell discovered that sometimes, when you give away your last $10, you receive something far more valuable in return. You receive hope, connection, and the reminder that even in the coldest, loneliest moments, we are never truly alone.